I want to start today by asking you to do something for me. If you're driving, obviously keep your eyes open, but if you're just listening, close your eyes for a second. I want you to picture the map of India.
You know, it's such a distinct shape, isn't it?
Right. You see that familiar diamond shape. You see the crown of the Himalayas at the top, the peninsula stretching down into the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
We tend to look at that outline and, well, think of it as something permanent.
Fixed.
Exactly. Like, that is India. That has always been India. The borders are fixed in stone, ancient and unchanging.
That is the common perception. We treat maps like they're photographs of a permanent reality. We just assume the lines on the paper represent something eternal.
Exactly. But here's the thing that really jumped out at me from our source material today, and honestly, it kind of blew my mind. The political map of India is actually more like a living, breathing entity. It's not a photograph. It's a movie that is still playing.
That's a very, very apt analogy.
Since 1947, this map has been sliced, diced, stitched together, and drawn over so many times that if you showed a 1950 map to a kid today, they probably wouldn't even recognize half the states.
Oh, they certainly would not. If you look at the administrative history, the internal boundaries of India have been redrawn with a frequency that is, quite frankly, astonishing compared to other major democracies.
So today we are doing a deep dive into Union and its territory.
Oh.
We're basing this on Chapter 5 of Indian Polity, which I know it sounds a little dry, but let me tell you, this isn't just about geography or memorizing capitals. It's about power.
It is. It's all about power.
It's about how the country is defined constitutionally.
Precisely. The mission for this deep dive is to really get our heads around the legal framework that holds India together. We need to look at how the Constitution defines the nation, the immense, and I do mean immense, power Parliament holds to redraw borders, and the dramatic history of how we went from a patchwork of 552 princely states to the current setup.
And there is a massive paradox right at the heart of this. It's one of those things that makes you go, wait, what? The text says India is a union, but not a federation in the way we usually think of federations, like in the U.S.
It is the core contradiction, or, maybe the core design feature. The phrase to keep in mind throughout this discussion, and if you take away one thing, let it be this, is an indestructible union of destructible states.
Indestructible union of destructible states. Okay, let's unpack this. Because usually when we think of a state like, say, Texas or California, we think of them as permanent fixtures. Destructible sounds. Well, it sounds ominous.
It's certainly significant. It implies that the state itself has no guaranteed right to exist in its current form. But to understand why the founders designed it this way, we have to start at the very beginning, with Article 1 of the Constitution.
Right, Article 1, the very first sentence of the rule book. This is where the identity of the nation is established, and immediately we hit a dual identity. The article reads, India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states.
And that phrase reflects a very interesting and actually quite heated debate within the Constituent Assembly. You have to remember the context. It's the late 1940s.
Right.
You had one camp that wanted to stick with the modern name India. It had international recognition, it was what the world knew us as, and it was associated with the modern treaty system.
Okay, so the pragmatists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you had another camp, the traditionalists, who argued that India was a foreign imposition. They advocated for the traditional name Bharat, which carries thousands of years of civilizational history.
So, like good politicians, they couldn't pick a winner.
They compromised. They adopted both. Hence, India, that is Bharat, it signals that we are a modern state with an ancient soul. But the second part of that sentence is legally much more significant.
Union of states.
Union of states.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Because we have a federal structure, right? We have a center in Delhi. We have states with their own chief ministers. They share power. So why not call it a federation of states? Why union?
Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the architect of the Constitution, was very, very specific about this choice of words. He gave two main reasons for preferring union. First, he wanted to make it absolutely clear that the Indian Federation was not the result of an agreement among the states.
An agreement, you mean like a contract?
Exactly like a contract. Think of the United States. The American colonies existed first, they came together, they sat down, and they signed a contract to form a country. They agreed to join.
That's not what happened here.
Not at all. In India, the states didn't come together, sign a contract, and form a country. The union created the states, not the other way around.
So it wasn't a deal. It wasn't a partnership agreement where everyone signs on the dotted line.
No deal.
Yeah.
And secondly, and this is crucial, because there was no agreement, the states have no right to secede from the federation.
You can't leave.
You cannot leave. The union is indestructible.
That's a huge distinction. In a contract, you can arguably find a loophole or, break the contract. Here, there is no exit door. The door is welded shut.
Exactly. The country is an integral whole. It is divided into different states only for the convenience of administration. The states are administrative units, not independent sovereigns that just decided to hang out together.
That explains the indestructible union part. Now, looking at the source, there's another distinction made between the Union of India and the Territory of India. I have to admit, I always thought those were synonyms.
Most people do.
If I say, I'm traveling to the Territory of India, isn't that the same as saying, I'm traveling through the Union?
In casual conversation, yes, absolutely. But constitutionally, they are quite different. Union of India is a political term. It includes only the states, the entities that share power with the center in the federal system. So, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Maharashtra, they are part of the union.
Okay. And Territory of India.
Territory of India is a geographical and legal term. It is a much wider expression. It includes three things. First, obviously, the territories of the states.
Got it.
Second, the union territories, which are directly administered by the center.
Right, like Delhi or Chandigarh.
And third, and this is the interesting part, any territories that may be acquired by the government of India at any time.
Acquired territories. That sounds a bit expansionist, like we're planning to conquer new lands.
Well, it is a statement of sovereignty. Being a sovereign state, India has the right to acquire foreign territories under international law. This could be through purchase, treaty, gift, or, yes, even conquest.
And we've done it.
We have. We acquired Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Goa, Puducherry, and Sikkim after the Constitution commenced. They fell into this acquired territory bucket before they were integrated.
Which leads us perfectly into Article 2. This article is all about admitting the new, right?
Correct. Article 2 empowers Parliament to admit into the Union of India or establish new states. The key word here is new, referring to territory that is not currently part of India.
So if India were to theoretically acquire a piece of land from a neighbor, or if, say, an island popped up in the ocean and we claimed it, Article 2 is the tool Parliament uses to bring it into the fold.
Exactly. It's the mechanism for expansion. But most of the action, the real drama we see in the news and the history books, happens under Article 3.
Article 3. Okay, this is the superpower.
Yeah.
This deals with internal readjustment.
This is where the destructible states concept becomes very, very real. Article 3 authorizes Parliament to do 5 specific things to existing states. And when you list them out, you realize just how much authority the center has.
Okay, let's hear them.
1, they can form a new state by separating territory from an existing state or by uniting parts of different states.
So they can take a state and just split it in two, or take 2 states and mash them together?
Correct. 2, they can increase the area of any state. 3, they can diminish the area of any state.
Diminish. That's a polite way of saying take land away.
It is. 4, they can alter the boundaries of any state. And 5, they can alter the name of any state.
Basically, Parliament can slice, dice, rename, and resize any state on the map. It's like they're playing a video game like Civilization or SimCity, and they have the God mode enables for borders.
It is a sweeping power. It basically means the very existence of a state, its geography, and its identity are entirely at the mercy of the Union Parliament.
But hold on. Surely the states get a say in this. If I'm a state, let's say I'm Karnataka, and Parliament decides, you know what, we're going to give half your land to Kerala, can I object? Do I have a veto?
Well, there's a procedure. The president has to refer the bill to the state legislature concerned.
Okay.
So they can express their views within a specific time.
Okay, so they get to express their views. That sounds democratic. They can pass a resolution saying, no, we hate this.
And here's the catch. The aha moment, or perhaps the oh no moment for the states. The president and parliament are not bound by the views of the state legislature.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Hold on. I need to process this. You're saying the state legislature, the elected representatives of those specific people, can pass a unanimous resolution saying, no, absolutely do not touch our borders. And Parliament in Delhi can just say, noted, and do it anyway.
Precisely. They can accept or reject the state's views. In fact, if the original bill is amended in Parliament, say they decide to change the borderline slightly differently than first proposed, they don't even have to go back to the state legislature for a second opinion.
They just pass it.
They just pass it. And for union territories, they don't even have to ask in the first place.
That sounds, well, it sounds incredibly centralized. If the U.S. government tried to carve up California against its will to make 2 new states, there would be absolute chaos. Legally, I mean.
There would be a constitutional crisis in the U.S., and this is where the source makes a very sharp comparison. In the U.S., it is an indestructible union of indestructible states.
Indestructible states.
Correct. In the U.S., the federal government cannot alter the borders of a state without that state's consent. It's constitutionally impossible. The state's territorial integrity is guaranteed.
Whereas in India,
The territorial integrity of a state is not guaranteed. Parliament can redraw the political map of India according to its will.
the union government can destroy the states, whereas the state governments cannot destroy the union. That's a powerful line from the text. Why? Why did they make it this way? It seems to put so little trust in the states.
You have to look at it through the eyes of the Constitution makers in 1947. The country had just been partitioned. There was horrific violence. There were 500-plus princely states. The fear wasn't that the center would be too strong. The fear was that the country would break apart into tiny pieces balkanization.
So they prioritized unity over state rights.
They prioritized survival. They saw the state not as a sovereign entity with feelings and rights, but as a temporary administrative container. If the container doesn't fit the contents anymore, if the population shifts or language demands change, you smash the container and build a new one.
That makes a lot of sense in that context. But there's one more kicker here, is there? Article 4, the loophole.
Ah, yes, Article 4. This is the final nail in the coffin of state permanence.
Usually, to change the Constitution, you need a special majority, right?
Mm-hmm.
2/3 of Parliament, lots of debate. It's very hard to do.
Correct. That's under Article 368. But Article 4 explicitly declares that laws made under Article 2 for admitting new states and Article 3 for changing existing states are not considered constitutional amendments.
Meaning they don't need that special 2/3 majority.
Exactly. These laws can be passed by a simple majority and the ordinary legislative process.
So redrawing the map of India, changing the destiny of millions of people, requires the same level of parliamentary consensus as passing a minor traffic law or a budget adjustment.
That is the power we're talking about.
That is mind-blowing when you think about the gravity of changing a border. It's so incredibly flexible.
It is. But this flexibility raised a huge burning question in the early years. If Parliament has the power to diminish the area of a state under Article 3, does that mean they can give Indian land away to a foreign country?
That is the logical next question, isn't it?
Right.
If I can shrink West Bengal to create a new state, can I shrink West Bengal to give a piece to Pakistan?
And it's not hypothetical. This actually came up in 1960 with the Burubari Union case.
Okay, set the scene for us.
The Burubari Union was a small territory in West Bengal. There was confusion over the boundary line drawn by Radcliffe during partition. To resolve this tension with what was then East Pakistan, the central government, led by Nehru, decided, okay, we will just cede this territory to Pakistan. We'll split it.
And I imagine the people in West Bengal were thrilled about this.
Quite the opposite. It caused a massive political agitation. People were furious. How can you give away our land?
Mm-hmm.
The president eventually referred the matter to the Supreme Court for an opinion.
And the question was simple.
The question was, can we do this under Article 3? Can we just diminish the state?
And the Supreme Court stepped in.
They did, and their ruling was a clear no. They held that the power to diminish the area of a state refers to internal adjustments within India. It does not cover the cession of Indian territory to a foreign state.
You can't use Article 3 to give away land.
You cannot. So to give land away, you actually need to amend the Constitution.
Under Article 368.
Exactly. Ceding territory requires a constitutional amendment. So the government had to go back to Parliament and pass the 9th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1960, specifically to transfer Burubari to Pakistan.
That's a crucial check on power.
Mm-hmm.
You can rearrange the furniture inside the house easily, but if you want to sell a room to the neighbor, you need the whole family's permission. Or in this case, a constitutional amendment.
That's a good way to put it. But there is a nuance here. Later, in 1969, the Supreme Court clarified something about boundary disputes.
What's the difference between ceding territory and just fixing a boundary?
That was the question. The court ruled that simply settling a boundary dispute doesn't necessarily involve ceding territory. If you're just clarifying where the line actually is because the map was vague or the river changed course or something, that can be done by executive action.
No amendment needed for that.
No amendment needed.
But sometimes, fixing a boundary involves swapping land. And that brings us to a much more recent example. The Bangladesh Exchange in 2015. This was the 100th constitutional amendment. And I was reading about these enclaves in the notes, and my brain started hurting.
The enclaves, it is one of the most bizarre geopolitical situations in modern history.
It's not just a piece of land, right? It's like,
Yeah.
imagine you have a house, but your house is technically inside your neighbor's backyard. And to get to your house, you have to cross their lawn.
It gets worse. Imagine your house is in your neighbor's backyard, but to leave your front door and walk to the street, you need a passport and a visa, which you can't get because there's no government office in your house.
So you're a prisoner in your own home.
Effectively, yes. These were called chit mahals. You had Indian enclaves surrounded by Bangladesh and Bangladeshi enclaves surrounded by India. There were even counter-enclaves, an Indian enclave inside a Bangladeshi enclave inside India.
My head is spinning. That sounds like a nightmare.
It was a humanitarian nightmare. For decades, the people living there effectively had no government. No police, no schools, no electricity grid from either side. If a crime happened, police from the surrounding country couldn't enter because it was technically foreign soil.
A legal black hole.
For about 50,000 people, it was a complete legal black hole.
That puts the 100th Amendment in perspective. It wasn't just drawing a line on a map. It was rescuing people from a bureaucratic twilight zone.
Exactly. The 100th Amendment operationalized a deal where India transferred 111 enclaves to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh transferred 51 enclaves to India.
111 out, 51 in.
And this also involved transferring what were called adverse possessions, essentially land that was technically ours, but they were occupying, and vice versa. Because this involved physically ceding territory, giving up those 111 enclaves, it required a constitutional amendment.
And they had to change the first schedule of the Constitution, right?
Yes, for 4 states, Assam, West Bengal, Meghalaya, and Tripura.
So we've established the rules. We know Parliament has the power. We know the constraints. Now let's look at how they actually used this power, because the map of India in 1947 looked nothing like it does today.
It was a completely different world. If you look at a 1947 map, it looks like a jigsaw puzzle that someone dropped on the floor.
We had the British provinces and then the princely states.
552 of them, 552 separate rulers, occupying nearly 40% of the land area. Some were huge, like Hyderabad, some were just a few villages.
And the British, in their final act, they gave them a choice, didn't they?
The Indian Independence Act gave them 3 options: join India, join Pakistan, or remain independent.
Remain independent. Talk about a poison pill for the new nation. Imagine having 500 little countries dotted inside India.
It would have been impossible. The integration of these states is largely credited to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He used diplomacy, pressure, persuasion. Of the 552, 549 joined India relatively quickly, but we had 3 famous holdouts.
Hyderabad, Junagadh, and Kashmir.
The big 3.
And each one is a movie in itself.
How were they handled? Different tools for different problems. Hyderabad was the largest. The Nizam wanted to stay independent, maybe even join Pakistan. It's right in the belly of India.
You can't have that.
India couldn't allow a hostile state in its center. So in 1948, India launched Operation Polo, a police action. The army moved in, and Hyderabad was integrated.
That's the hard power. What about Junagadh?
Junagadh was in Gujarat. The ruler was Muslim and wanted to join Pakistan, but the population was overwhelmingly Hindu. Here, the instrument was democracy. A referendum was held. The people voted overwhelmingly to join India.
And Kashmir.
Kashmir was the reverse. A Hindu ruler, Maharaja Hari Singh, with a majority Muslim population. He wanted to stay independent. But when tribal raiders from Pakistan attacked, he asked India for help. India said, "We can't help unless you accede." So he signed the Instrument of Accession.
So by 1950, we have all these territories. How do they organize them? I saw something about an ABCD system in the notes, and it looked like an accountant's nightmare.
It was the 4-fold classification. It was purely ad hoc. You had Part A states, which were the old British provinces like Bombay and Madras. Part B states were the former big princely states like Mysore.
Yep.
Part C states were the centrally administered areas. And Part D was just the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. All told, 29 units.
It sounds chaotic. I'm from a Part B state, you're from a Part C state. It feels very temporary.
It was, and almost immediately there was pressure to change it. And this brings us to the most emotional chapter in this story, the linguistic tinderbox.
This is where things get violent. The demand for states based on language.
Right. You have to understand, the Congress Party had actually promised linguistic provinces back in the 1920s. But after partition, Nehru and others were terrified.
They got cold feet.
They thought, we just divided the country on religion. If we now divide it by language, will India survive? Or will we break into 20 different countries?
So they tried to stall.
They stalled hard. In 1948, they appointed the Dar Commission. The commission looked at it and said no. They recommended reorganization based on administrative convenience, not language.
Which probably just made people angrier.
It did. So later that year, the JVP committee, that's Nehru, Patel, and Sitaramaya, they looked at it again, and even they formally rejected language as the basis. They said now is not the time.
But you can't bottle up that kind of sentiment forever. And then came 1953, the turning point.
The story of Polity Sriramalu. He was a Gandhian, a Congress worker. He went on a hunger strike, demanding a separate state for Telugu speakers to be carved out of the Madras presidency.
A hunger strike is a very powerful political weapon in India.
It is. And tragically, the government didn't act fast enough. Polity Sriramalu died after 56 days of fasting.
56 days.
His death triggered massive, widespread riots in the Andhra region. It completely forced the government's hand. They couldn't ignore it anymore. In October 1953, they created the first linguistic state, Andhra.
And once you open that door, once you give it to the Telugu speakers,
everyone wants to walk through it. The Kannadigas, the Malayalis, the Marathis, everyone demanded their own state. The dam had burst. So the government appointed the Fazal Ali Commission in 1953 to look at the whole picture.
And what was their verdict?
They took a pragmatic middle path. They accepted language as a basis for reorganization. You can't ignore culture. But they firmly rejected the one language, one state theory.
So it's a factor, but not the only factor.
Exactly. They said the primary consideration has to be the unity and security of India. But their report led to the Great Reset.
The States Reorganization Act of 1956.
This is the moment the modern map begins to take shape. They abolish that confused ABCD system. They merge territories. And on November 1st, 1956, we ended up with 14 states and 6 union territories.
14 states. We have 28 now. So, strictly speaking, we've doubled the number of states since 1956.
We have. And the journey from 14 to 28 is a rapid-fire tour of political history.
Let's do that tour. But not just a list of dates. Let's look at why. We start in the 1960s. The 50s were about language, but the job wasn't done.
Not at all. The 1960s were volatile. First up, 1960, the state of Bombay. It was a huge bilingual state. You had Marathi speakers and Gujarati speakers. It simply wasn't working. The movements were too strong.
So they split it.
It was bifurcated. Maharashtra for Marathi speakers, Gujarat for Gujarati speakers. Gujarat becomes the 15th state.
Then we have the colonial hangovers being integrated.
Yes. This is where India cleans up the last messy leftovers of the colonial era. The Portuguese and French were still holding onto their little pockets. Dadra and Nagar Haveli Portuguese rule ended in 1954, but it officially became a UT in 1961.
And Goa. That wasn't a peaceful handover, was it?
No. The Portuguese dictator Salazar refused to leave. So in 1961, the Indian Army launched Operation Vijay. It was over in less than 2 days. Goa, Daman, and Diu became a union territory in 1962.
Then in the Northeast, things were shifting too.
Nagaland. This wasn't just language. This was about distinct tribal identity and, well, insurgency. In 1963, to satisfy the movement of the Nagas, the state of Nagaland was formed out of Assam. That's the 16th state.
Then back to the Northwest. Punjab. Now, I always assumed Punjab was just linguistic, but there was a religious element too, right?
Yes. The demand was for a Punjabi-speaking state, but it was also largely driven by the Sikh community demanding a distinct political unit. The Shah Commission recommended splitting Punjab in 1966.
So they carved it up.
They did. The Punjabi-speaking areas stayed in Punjab. The Hindi-speaking areas became the new state of Haryana, the 17th state. And the hill areas, they were merged with Himachal Pradesh.
And Chandigarh. Both states wanted it as their capital.
So nobody got it, or rather both got it. It became a union territory that serves as the capital for both states, a very unique solution.
Moving into the 70s, this feels like the era of the Northeast waking up.
It really was. In 1971, Himachal Pradesh gets promoted from a union territory to a full state. That's number 18. Then 1972 is a massive makeover of the Northeast map. Before this, the Northeast was mostly just Assam.
Right.
But you had distinct tribes and geographies, so Manipur, Tripura, and Meghalaya all get statehood.
Boom, boom, boom. 19th, 20th, and 21st states.
Now we have to pause on the Sikkim saga. The notes highlight this as a very unique legal case.
Yeah, Sikkim. It wasn't part of India in 1947.
Not exactly. It was a protectorate. India handled its defense and foreign affairs, but it was ruled by a king, the Chojal. It was internally autonomous. But by the 70s, the people of Sikkim wanted democracy, and they wanted to join India.
But India didn't just annex it. They invented a new relationship status for it.
They did. It was like a dating phase before marriage. In 1974, Parliament passed the 35th Amendment, giving Sikkim the status of an associate state.
I never heard of
It
that.
was a brand new concept. They even added a new Article 2A and a 10th schedule to the Constitution just for this.
Just for Sikkim, associate state.
But the trial period didn't last long. It didn't satisfy the people's aspirations. In 1975, a referendum was held. The people voted to abolish the monarchy and join India fully. So the 36th Amendment was passed. Sikkim became the 22nd full state. Article 2A was repealed. It's the only time we added an article to the Constitution and then deleted it within a year.
That brings us to the late 80s.
1987, 3 big upgrades. Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, and Goa all moved from Union Territory status to full statehood. That gets us to 23, 24, and 25.
Then we jump to the new millennium, the year 2000. I remember this well. This wasn't about language or religion. This was about development, right?
Yes, administrative efficiency and development. These were huge states, MP, UP, Bihar, that were seen as ungovernable because of their size. And certain regions within them felt neglected. So the Millennium States were born.
Chhattisgarh from Madhya Pradesh,
Uttarakhand from Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand from Bihar.
creating the 26th, 27th, and 28th states.
Correct. And then a bit of a gap until 2014, the Telangana movement.
That was a throwback to the 50s. Massive agitation.
It was a very long and sometimes violent movement. Finally, in 2014, Telangana was carved out of Andhra Pradesh to become the 29th state.
Wait, 29th? But you said there are 28 states now. I'm confused.
And that brings us to the most recent and perhaps most significant shift of all. Jammu and Kashmir in 2019.
Okay, but pause here. We've seen union territories become states. That seems to be the normal graduation path. We saw it with Himachal, with Goa. But in 2019, with Jammu and Kashmir, we saw the reverse.
We did. And that's what makes the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019 so historically unique. Never before had a full-fledged state been demoted, if you want to call it that, into union territories. It wasn't just a map change, it was a fundamental status change.
What was the logic there? I get the political context of Article 370 is complex, but purely from a map perspective, why split them?
It goes back to that aspirations point we touched on earlier. You had 2 very distinct demands. The people of Ladakh, effectively isolated by geography and culture, had been demanding Union Territory status for decades.
They wanted to be ruled from Delhi, not Srinagar.
Exactly. They felt neglected by the state government. So the act carved out the districts of Kargil and Leh to give Ladakh that autonomy as a UT without a legislature. Meanwhile, converting J&K into a UT was argued as a security measure, giving the center direct control over law and order during a transition period.
So Parliament effectively flexed that Article 3 muscle we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They didn't just trim the borders, they fundamentally altered the DNA of the state.
Precisely. So we lost a state and gained 2 UTs. The count of states dropped from 29 back to 28, and the number of union territories increased to 9.
So from 14 states and 6 UTs in 1956 to 28 states and 9 UTs today. It really is a living map.
It is. And it's not just borders. The names keep changing, too.
Oh, the name changes. I love these. It's like the country's constantly rebranding.
It reflects the reclaiming of cultural identity. The United Provinces, very colonial sounding, became Uttar Pradesh in 1950. That was the first one.
Then Madras became Tamil Nadu in 1969. That's a big one.
Huge. Mysore became Karnataka in 1973. In the same year, the Laccadive, Minicoy, and Amindivi Islands became Lakshadweep.
Much easier to say.
Indeed. Then Uttaranchal became Uttarakhand in 2006. Pondicherry became Puducherry the same year. And Orissa became Odisha in 2011.
So what does this all mean? We've covered the law, the history, the changes. When you step back and look at this whole idea of an indestructible union of destructible states, what is the big takeaway?
The synthesis is this. The Indian Constitution balances 2 competing needs. On one hand, you need a rigid, indestructible union to maintain national security and prevent fragmentation. That's why secession is impossible.
But on the other hand,
you have a country of immense diversity, linguistic, cultural, geographic. If the internal borders were rigid, the pressure cooker would explode. The destructible state allows the system to be flexible. It allows the map to breathe and adjust to the aspirations of the people,
right,
whether it's language in the 50s, tribal identity in the Northeast, or development needs in the 2000s.
So the flexibility is actually a feature, not a bug. It's a safety valve.
Precisely. The map changes so that the union can survive.
That is a fascinating way to look at it.
It is.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with a final thought to mull over. We've seen that Parliament can basically redraw the map at will. They don't even need the state's permission.
Correct.
So if your state lines can be erased by a simple majority in Delhi, is the state in India merely an administrative address rather than a true political identity?
Mm.
And given that we've gone from 14 states to 28, and names are still changing, are we looking at the final map of India today? Or are we just looking at the current draft?
That is the question, and history suggests it's likely just the current draft.
Something to think about next time you look at a map. That's it for this deep dive into the Union and its territory. Thanks for listening.